Keith Smith, contributor for RealGM.com. Going to jump on board as the NBA offseason a little slower than last year, and I'm trying to, we talked earlier, Keith, about what the story is about why. If you could come up with a theory as to why the team's not spending the money and not quite as much activity as last year.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Everything's good, man.
Doing well, Keith.
Good. So why teams aren't spending money is so much money was spent last year. So you don't have as many teams with cap space. We are rapidly going to get right back into an environment where the NBA was for a number of years prior to the last two seasons, where most of the teams are capped out. You're going to have 1 to 5 teams each year with meaningful cap space, and everybody else is going to be capped out, which makes the trade market more interesting, more robust, because that'll be the way people will be moving players. Exceptions become valuable again, as well as sign and trade. They're a tool to improve teams. So that's going to be where we're going to be sitting for quite some time now.
Yeah, one of the things, too, with a lot of the teams with this cap space that I guess was created because of, the TV deal, that's going to kind of go away, too, right? That number, do you anticipate that number kind of coming back down or kind of hanging around where it is more so than going up? Is it going to come back down at all, or do you think it will kind of plateau around, $99 million right now?
Yeah, the cap is set at $99 million right now, which is still an all-time high. It will come down, but what it'll do is we'll see a gradual increase now rather than the big spike that we have seen the last 2 years, especially last year. We're going to see it kind of gradually go up, maybe, a few million each year at the most for the foreseeable future. You hit the nail on the head. It was because of the TV deal coming in that caused the giant spike, which the NBA tried to smooth out. They wanted to do a cap smoothing proposal. The Players Union did not, and here we are.
Keith Smith, RealGM.com's with us here, taking a look at some of the free agent moves. Let's get your take on, now that the Sixers moves are official with J.J. Redick and Amir Johnson. They both get one-year deals, and if you can kind of let the listeners know whether or not that was a smart move, good move. Some people would say, why only a one-year deal? Why not longer for Redick? Give us the background and the thinking of Brian Colangelo with these deals.
Yeah, no, I think they're both great signing. I think Redick, the idea was, we saw Philadelphia last year. They tried to overpay both Jamal Crawford and Manu Ginobili on one-year deals by offering them way more money than they would have gotten as an annual average, and it didn't work. And then this year, they said Redick was their targeted player right out of the gate, and they went and gave him big money, and they had to overpay to get him to come for just 1 year. But what it does is it protects them. So all of a sudden, if J.J. Redick comes in and he all of a sudden becomes old and he's not good, Philadelphia gets out of that contract really quickly. And then they still have mechanisms where they can re-sign him if he is, really good this year for them. And it's similar to the same thing with Amir Johnson, just on a lower scale, where he's making about half what Redick makes. And that's more of they want to have a grown-up in the room with all the young kids, especially with the young bigs, and that's what Amir Johnson will provide.
Yeah, they went out and finally brought in some of those veteran guys. So what's the message from Philadelphia? So much of this process has kind of been they don't care about winning. Has the focus shifted away from that narrative to, hey, we need to make the playoffs now?
Yeah, I don't want to go as far as we need to make the playoffs, but I think that is certainly the goal here. The goal is, let's start winning more games. Let's be even more competitive than we were last year. Last year, they were a much improved squad. So this year, the push is, let's continue that upward momentum. Let's really push in. Let's try and get to the playoffs. And I think Brian Colangelo also read right that the Eastern Conference, it's going to be way down this year. After you get past the top 4 or 5 teams in Cleveland, Toronto, Boston, Milwaukee, and Washington, the rest is wide open. So they're going to really make a push to be a playoff team this season. It's probably not an ultimatum, but it's certainly time to push this rebuild forward to getting closer to that goal.
Keith Smith with us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And Keith, in a watered-down Eastern Conference, and you're adding a healthy Ben Simmons and Fultz and Redick, etc., should the Sixers make the playoffs? Are they a playoff team? Plus more games from Embiid, hopefully.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? You just said it. If Joel Embiid can give them, even 60 games, I think they're going to be really close to a playoff team. I don't want to go overboard with Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz. Let's see him play a real game first before we start saying that those guys are ready to be contributors on a playoff team. But I do think they'll be in the mix for the 6, 7, 8 seed, somewhere in that range. They're out of that top grouping of clubs, but they're firmly in the mix with the next group, if not near the top of that group.
Who do you think where do you think the ceiling is for the Sixers? Because Mike and I have talked about teams that go 41-41, and they kind of sit in that 8-7-6 cycle. But this could be a team maybe that makes the playoffs and is on the rise. Where do you think the ceiling is for the Sixers?
By the way, just to throw this out there real fast, I saw the Vegas over/under for Philly was 40.5. So that's another significant jump from the 28 they were at last year.
And a team that won 10 games 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, they are going to be – that's probably about where I would project them. We need to see where the rest of the offseason falls out here. But I think that they'll probably be right around 500, maybe slightly better, maybe 42, 43 wins. I look at them similar to what Milwaukee did, which was they gradually improved, got there, and then they became a clear playoff team, and then made a secondary jump. And it's always hard to go it's harder to go from being a good team to a great team than it is from being a bad team to a good team. We see teams go from bad to good all the time. It's that second jump that is the more difficult one.
And do you endorse that theory, Keith, that there's, two kinds of 41 teams, a 41 that's maybe on the rise, or one that just sits there sort of in purgatory or that spin cycle?
Well, it's interesting because I'd like to interject on that question a little bit because I saw, I guess it was Steve Kyler over at Basketball Insider's tweet that he heard from the agent community that this might be the biggest year of teams opting for tank route rather than try for the 8th seed, Keith. And, on his question there, it seems that teams are looking at the Phillies and the Phoenixes and the Minnesotas and saying, you know what, maybe they're onto something there.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of the question is I do think that there's two clearly different groups. You don't want to be the team that's 41-41 every year for a 5-year period because, that's if your goal is to simply be just a playoff team, you can make that happen. There's always enough veterans hanging around that can make you a decent team. When you go from being a 20-win team to a 41-win team, and then that's your kind of stop along the journey to being a 50-win team, that's fine. There's definitely difference. As to the teams tanking, that is true. Orlando Summer League just wrapped up. Been down here all week talking with a lot of different people, and there are a lot of teams that are basically saying, you know what, in this new capped-out environment that we're back in again, that there's really no other way to improve than let's bottom this thing out, hit the draft, and go at it that way. There are a lot of speculation that that's where we're headed back to.
So you think we will start to see some teams kind of tap out on a couple seasons?
Yeah, I do. I don't know that it's going to be quite what Philadelphia did, where it's, let's sign every guy to a 4-year minimum contract deal and say, millions upon millions under the salary floor. I don't know that we'll get quite there, but I do think we're going to see teams. Actually, no, we're seeing teams already being cautious. Phoenix dropped out and said, we're running with what we have. We have seen Orlando say, we're not going to rush this. We're going to, maintain our flexibility and try to be smart about this rebuild. We're going to see Indiana's now doing somewhat similar things. They're not going to rush into a whole bunch of veteran signings. So I do think we're going to start to see those teams say, you know what, it's better let's take this slow, let's do it the right way, and let's not be reckless with the way we rebuild.
We're talking with Keith Smith, RealGM.com, covers the NBA, and I want to get your take, Keith, on everybody seems to like Hayward in Boston. Oh, okay, they got it. They added an all-star player. They needed a scorer. But did they do it at the detriment of their young players? I mean, he plays the same position as Jaylen Brown, plays the same position as Tatum, plays the same position as Crowder, who might not be there anymore, but it seems that they're going to have to give up guys to get him in there. And then your 2 young lottery picks, how do they fit in with Gordon Hayward?
Yeah, so Jaylen Brown definitely plays the same position as Hayward. They're both 2 threes. Tatum is more of a 3-4, and the team currently, other than Al Horford and then rookie Ante Zizic, they don't have anybody who can play really the forward spot. So Tatum should be fine. Brown will be fine as well because Brad Stevens likes to play 8, 9, 10, or even 11 guys on a regular basis, especially throughout the course of the regular season. So really what Boston is doing is they went and brought in an all-star talent in Hayward. Well, they'll continue to give those development minutes, 15, 20, 25 minutes a night to those younger guys, because the other thing Boston's not afraid to do is they'll play 4 smalls around Al Horford and just say, you know what, maybe we give up on the glass, but how are you going to defend us? So they'll do that. There's plenty of minutes to go around. And what it also does is it takes the pressure off Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as 2 19, 20-year-old guys to have to be impactful players. They can really develop at their own pace because there are so many good players in front of them.
Yeah, obviously a lot of people would say, okay, they're still maybe the first, seed or the second best team in the East, but how much have they closed the gap on Cleveland?
Yeah, not enough. They've certainly closed it a little bit, and we'll have to see where else Boston goes to fill out the roster, and even what the mechanism is to even get Hayward in, because they're still working on the details on that and how that's going to ultimately all play out. But the Cavs still have LeBron, and as long as they have LeBron, then they're going to be the best team in the East. It's just, Boston may win the conference regular season once again, and Cleveland could even drop 3 or 4, but it doesn't matter because Cleveland knows that they'll be there in the end and that they can go on anybody's floor other than maybe Golden State and win games. They're not overly concerned about their seeding. But what Boston has done is if LeBron James, if next summer, this time of the year, we're talking about LeBron James heading out to Los Angeles, what Boston has done is they put themselves in position to be that team. Now they take over the Eastern Conference for probably the foreseeable future.
That was going to be my next question, Keith. If you had any clues or a gut feeling about LeBron's future in Cleveland, because it looks like it's rocky.
Yeah, all signs point to it being rocky. I think maybe even generous. Way to put it. I do think he is probably playing this out. He came home and delivered a championship to the Cavs, so he really fulfilled what his mission was coming back to Cleveland. And now if he leaves, I don't think fans are going to be all that upset with him. I think they're going to turn that towards Dan Gilbert and blame him if LeBron walks away this time. And you can't really blame him. Dan Gilbert continues to say, I don't really need a GM. I'll just hire whoever will take, minimal amount of money as far as that job is concerned, and they'll do what I need to do. And that minimizes the value of guys like David Griffin, who did a wonderful job putting the roster together around LeBron. And LeBron there's a lot of fans, he wants to be in Los Angeles. That's where all of his non-basketball life is. And I would be really, at this point, more surprised if he's back in Cleveland than if he's with one of the 2 LA teams next year.
Were you surprised then that Billups walked away, or given the toxicity, I guess, that Gilbert seems to have with his GM, so that didn't shock you?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me only because Chauncey Billups has a good gig with ESPN. He made a lot of money as an NBA player. So I think he's looking at it and saying, look, if you're not going to value me for what I can bring in, I don't want to be here. And I think Chauncey Billups also reads the writing on the wall and says, if I'm going to have to come in here and then rebuild this and I'm going to have all this hassle and not be paid, what I feel I'm worth for the role, it's just better for me to ride it out, stick it out here to ESPN, and I'll take whatever the next job is that comes around.
Keith Smith, RealGM.com, NBA. Keith, I guess we feel Golden State still 1. Spurs maybe still 2. Who's next? Houston, Oklahoma City, or other? Who do you like? Whose team's move do you like the best of those 2?
Yeah, I would still give it to Houston. They still have James Harden, who was right up there for the MVP. I think they still have better supporting pieces with Harden and Paul. They have a really good system with their coach. So I think that they would still be number 2. But then I do think Oklahoma City is probably the 4th best team. And if you're looking for a mystery team, it's not so much a mystery anymore with some of the moves they made. But I think Minnesota is going to rapidly climb up their ranks in the Western Conference. The West is just going to be a bloodbath this year. Teams, that are going to miss out on the playoffs and be lottery teams, they might be middle of the pack in the East.
Why do you think then, knowing that, and everybody's opinion is that, Why do you think these higher profile guys have decided to go through that bloodbath? Why don't some of these guys say, you know what? The door is open east. Is it just coincidental? Is it the weather? Why do you think that so many of these guys – now, I know some were traded, so they couldn't really they couldn't make that decision like Paul George. Chris Paul, though, he kind of forced his way to Houston. Why do you think these guys continue to choose the West, knowing that Golden State's there, even San Antonio's there, plus a lot of depth with the, second-tier teams as opposed to East? Is LeBron that scary of an option that teams don't want to go through that?
I think there's a little bit of that LeBron factor, but I think you also have players believe that. One thing I've learned about NBA players in my years doing this, they're all supremely confident that they can be the guy who puts the team over the top. Even the guys who are back-end roster guys think that they're going to be the one who steps in and pushes it where it needs to be. And then when you add that to, and I'm linking up with one of my buddies, and we're going to create this great duo or trio of guys, that's where they see that. They don't look at it as Golden State's unbeatable. And, a lot of people will suggest, well, no one's beating the Warriors, just punt. That's not how NBA teams and NBA players think. They believe that, we can do this. Or, they may even say, we beat them twice last year in the regular season or whatever the case may be. If we can just replicate that, but with a better guy, now we can really, challenge them, which in my opinion is faulty thinking. I don't think anybody's beating the Warriors, but that's the way these guys see it. Other than maybe a Gordon Hayward, who I think he made the right decision and said, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get east. I'm going to link up with my former coach and be in position to at least be in the finals, challenging them in a year or so.
Keith, what your thoughts on what the Kings did? They draft Fox. They bring in Hill. They get a veteran in Randolph. What's the message from them?
Yeah, in general, I like the idea of bringing in bridge guys, which is what Hill and Randolph should be. But I think they overpaid slightly to do it. But now they're the Kings, so they have to. No one's going to go there just to take a fair deal. So they've got to overpay a little bit. But, when we look at it, rookies don't generally come in and make a huge impact in the NBA anymore because they come in at 19 and 20 years old. So if you look back, who was the last rookie that came in and was really like, man, that guy just dominated and turned everything around? It just generally does not happen. It's a huge adjustment for those players. So I think what you'll see is Hill and Randolph will step in, probably be starters out of the gate. And then as players like De'Aaron Fox and Scalabrine become more ready to take those jobs, then Hill and Randolph will slide into more backup and supporting type of roles. And hopefully by that point, the Kings are ready to challenge and be a playoff team. But as they're currently constructed, just because of how much the rest of the conference has improved, they're going to struggle mightily to make the playoffs.
Keith Smith's with us, and you're down there in Orlando at some of those Summer League games. What are some of the storylines of being around the Summer League? What are some of the the people talking about down there? Because it seems that the landscape of this league is really changing right before our eyes.
Yeah, well, the Paul George trade broke on the eve of Summer League starting, so it was really cool to get to be in the gym with all these NBA folks, and especially people from teams. And that one blew everyone away. It came completely out of nowhere. No one had any inkling that was going on. And everybody was kind of like, what happened? And it was all anybody would talk about the first day. Every hour or so you get a new team kind of coming through the doors as they get ready to play their game. So that brings all these new people in, and everybody's like, what about that, George OKC trade? As far as players here in Orlando, a lot of the top tier guys were not here, and the ones who could have been, Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., they did not play in Orlando, so that was a little bit disappointing. Malik Monk sat out as well for the Hornets, but we get to see some guys do some things to make good on a couple of different rosters. Jonathan Isaac looked pretty good for the Magic. So I think everyone is the big theme that comes out of it is everyone's really excited about all the good young talent in the league, and everyone feels like the NBA is as well positioned to be strong for the next number of years as they have been in a number of years.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stories in these summer league games. You've seen the ones in Utah have been pretty entertaining with the Celtics guys out there. The Sixers with Fultz, of course, they'll play tonight. Keith Smith is out of Orlando, where the Orlando Summer League wraps up. Was that finishing up tonight down there?
It did. It just finished up this afternoon. The Dallas Mavericks won the Orlando Summer League Championship, and now most of the basketball world, myself included, is headed to Las Vegas in the morning for
Cool.
Las Vegas Summer League to kick off tomorrow.
All right. I saw an 8 o'clock tip-off down there this morning in the Orlando Summer
Well, you
League.
got to get to the airport. You got to get to those flights.
Keith Smith, Real
Get everybody out.
That's right. Keith Smith, RealGM.com, here on the Sports Bash at Keith Smith NBA. And more news in no time, sure, throughout the offseason. Thanks, Keith.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.